Sister Teresa sat by the window of her small room in St. Catherine's Convent, watching as the last light of day painted the hills golden. At 83, her hands were now twisted with arthritis, the veins standing out against paper-thin skin. Those same hands had once flown across piano keys with the grace of birds in flight. Now they mostly held prayer beads, turned the pages of well-worn religious texts, or helped in the convent's vegetable garden when the weather was kind to her old bones. The convent bell rang, calling the sisters to evening prayer. Teresa rose slowly from her chair, adjusted her habit, and made her way down the narrow stone corridor. As she walked, her mind drifted back to a time before these walls had become her home, before silence had become her companion. She had been just 19 when she first sat before the grand piano at the National Academy of Music. The daughter of a baker and a seamstress, Teresa had shown remarkable talent from an early age, playing on an old upright piano that a kind neighbor had given to her family. Her parents had sacrificed everything to send her to music school, believing their daughter might one day play in the great concert halls of Europe. And she had been on that path. Her teachers spoke of her rare gift, her ability to breathe life into the notes on a page. Teresa could still remember the feeling of losing herself in the music, of becoming one with Chopin, Bach, and Beethoven. "Sister Teresa, are you well?" Sister Agnes, one of the younger nuns at 65, touched her elbow gently. Teresa realized she had stopped walking, lost in her memories. Yes, just these old legs taking a moment's rest," she said with a small smile, continuing toward the chapel. Inside, the sisters gathered in their usual places. Mother Catherine, who had led their order for the past 15 years, nodded at Teresa with respect. At the front of the chapel stood their newest addition, Sister Lily, barely 22 and still adjusting to life in the convent. Her eyes were often red from crying at night, though she tried to hide it. Teresa remembered that feeling of adjustment all too well. As the prayers began, Teresa's thoughts once again wandered to the day everything changed. The day she chose this path of devotion over her musical career. It had been after a particularly successful recital. Several music critics had attended, and one had written that young Teresa plays with the soul of someone who has lived many lifetimes. Offers began coming in for performances in larger venues. Her future seemed set. Then her mother fell ill. Cancer, the doctors said, with little hope of recovery. Teresa put her music on hold to care for her, sitting by her bedside day and night. It was during those long nights that her mother spoke of faith and finding purpose beyond worldly success. "The music God placed in your heart," her mother had whispered one night, "it can serve in ways you haven't yet imagined." After her mother passed, Teresa found herself drawn to St. Catherine's Convent. She began visiting regularly, finding peace within its walls that had eluded her in the concert halls and music schools. The sisters welcomed her, and slowly the idea of joining them took root in her heart. Her father couldn't understand. "God gave you this gift to share with the world," he had argued. Her teachers were equally baffled. "You are throwing away everything you've worked for," her piano instructor had said. But Teresa felt called to a different kind of life, one of service and prayer. At 22, the same age Sister Lily was now, she had entered the convent as a novice. The Mother Superior at that time was Sister Agatha, a stern woman who believed in strict adherence to tradition. When Teresa asked if she might continue playing piano occasionally, perhaps for church services, Sister Agatha's response had been immediate and firm. "You have chosen to leave that life behind. Music like that belongs to the world, and you have chosen to separate yourself from worldly things. The skill you have is a distraction, both for yourself and potentially for others. It might lead to pride, to yearning for applause and recognition. Such things have no place here." Teresa had accepted this ruling without argument. She had come to serve God, not to impose her own wishes. And so her hands, once so nimble on the keys, learned new skills: gardening, sewing, cooking, cleaning. Over time, she even stopped hearing phantom melodies in her head. The convent did have an old piano in what they called the common room, though it was rarely used except when children from the local school visited, and someone would play simple tunes for them to sing along. Teresa avoided the room when these events occurred, knowing that watching others play, even poorly, might awaken the longing she had worked so hard to suppress. As the evening prayers concluded, the sisters filed out of the chapel. Teresa lingered, as was her habit, to spend a few extra moments in quiet contemplation. Sister Teresa? It was Mother Catherine. You seem troubled tonight. Teresa shook her head. Not troubled, Mother. Just remembering. Ah. Mother Catherine sat beside her. Unlike Sister Agatha, Mother Catherine had a gentler approach to leadership. The past has a way of visiting us more frequently as we age. I find myself thinking of my brothers more often these days. It's been 30 years since I've seen them. Teresa nodded. 61 years ago today I gave my first major recital. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Mother Catherine looked at her with surprise. I didn't know you played an instrument. Piano, Teresa said softly. It was before. You must have been quite good. Teresa's eyes grew distant. I was told I had a gift. She quickly added, but God had other plans for me. Better plans. Mother Catherine was quiet for a moment. Sister Agatha forbade you from playing, didn't she? Teresa looked up, startled. How did you know? She did the same to Sister Elizabeth, who had been a singer. It was her belief that such talents should be set aside completely. Mother Catherine sighed. The Church has evolved in its thinking since then. Many now believe our gifts, whatever they may be, can be used in service of our faith. Teresa felt something stir inside her, a long-dormant emotion she couldn't quite name. It doesn't matter now, she said. My hands wouldn't remember the keys. And the arthritis. She held up her gnarled fingers. Mother Catherine covered Teresa's hand with her own. Perhaps, but I wonder if there isn't still music in your heart, sister. Later that night, Teresa couldn't sleep. Mother Catherine's words had awakened something she had buried deep decades ago. She lit a small candle and took out the one possession she had kept from her previous life, a faded program from her final recital. She hadn't looked at it in years, keeping it tucked inside her Bible. The yellowed paper listed the pieces she had played that night. Bach's Prelude in C major, Mozart's Sonata in A minor, and Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. As she read the titles, the notes came back to her, faint at first, then stronger, like a radio tuning into a distant station. Teresa closed her eyes and placed her fingers on the edge of her small desk, moving them as if playing an invisible keyboard. The music in her mind grew louder. Her fingers, stiff as they were, remembered the patterns, the pressure needed for each note, the subtle shifts in tempo. A tear slid down her wrinkled cheek. 61 years of silence. 61 years of a gift unopened. Had that truly been God's will? Or just one person's interpretation of it? Outside her window, the moon cast long shadows across the convent grounds. Tomorrow would be like every other day. Prayers, meals, chores, more prayers. The rhythm of convent life was as predictable as a metronome. She had found peace in that predictability, in the quiet service to God and others. Yet tonight, for the first time in decades, Teresa wondered what might happen if she were to sit at that old piano in the common room, just once, and let her fingers remember what her mind had never truly forgotten. She blew out the candle and returned to bed, the melodies still playing in her head as she drifted off to sleep, a small smile on her lips as Bach's notes carried her into dreams of what once was and what might yet be. The morning sun streamed through the windows of St. Catherine's Convent, warming the old stone floors as Sister Teresa made her way to the dining hall for breakfast. She had slept fitfully, her dreams filled with concert halls and applause, with the feeling of piano keys beneath her fingers. Waking up had been strange, as if she'd visited a place long forgotten and wasn't quite ready to leave. Good morning, Sister Teresa. Sister Lily greeted her, setting a bowl of oatmeal on the table. The young nun's eyes were less puffy today, Teresa noticed. Perhaps she was beginning to adjust to convent life. Good morning, child, Teresa replied with a warm smile. Did you sleep well? Sister Lily shrugged. Better than before. I still miss my phone, though, she admitted in a whisper, glancing around to make sure no one else heard. Teresa chuckled. I never had one of those, but I understand what it's like to miss something that was once part of your daily life. What did you miss most when you first came here? Sister Lily asked, sitting across from her. Teresa paused, her spoon halfway to her mouth. She rarely spoke about her past life, especially not about the music. But something about last night's conversation with Mother Catherine had loosened something inside her. I was a pianist, she said quietly. I missed the feeling of playing, of losing myself in the music. Sister Lily's eyes widened. You played piano? Were you good? I was, Teresa admitted, and for once she didn't feel that the acknowledgement was a sin of pride. Very good, actually. We have a piano in the common room, Sister Lily said. I've never heard anyone play it properly. Could you? No, Teresa cut her off gently. That was a long time ago. And when I joined, I was told such worldly talents were to be set aside, Sister Lily frowned. But why? Music is beautiful. How can something beautiful be wrong? Before Teresa could answer, Sister Agnes called Lily away to help with the morning chores. Teresa finished her breakfast in silence, but the young nun's question echoed in her mind. How indeed could something beautiful be wrong? She had never questioned Sister Agatha's ruling, accepting it as part of her sacrifice, her commitment to this life. But now in her twilight years, doubts were creeping in like morning mist. After breakfast, Teresa joined several other elderly sisters in the sewing room, where they mended clothes and made simple items to sell at the local market to support the convent. Her fingers, though stiff, were still nimble enough for needlework. As she stitched, she found herself tapping out a rhythm on the fabric, following the melody that had been playing in her head since she woke. "What's that tune?" asked Sister Rose, who sat beside her. "You've been humming it all morning." Teresa hadn't realized she was humming. "Bach," she said automatically. "The Goldberg Variations." "It's lovely," Sister Rose said. "You have a good ear for music." Teresa just nodded, feeling suddenly exposed as if she'd revealed too much of herself. At midday, an unexpected announcement came. The convent would be receiving a visitor the next day. A well-known musician and filmmaker named Anthony Ricci was working on a documentary about historic churches and their musical traditions. St. Catherine's, with its 15th century chapel and unique acoustics, had been selected as one of the filming locations. The news sent a ripple of excitement through the normally quiet convent. Visitors were rare enough, but someone famous was practically unheard of. The younger nuns were especially animated, while the older ones expressed concern about disruption to their routines. "He will only be here for one day," Mother Catherine assured them, "and his work celebrates the beauty of our faith traditions. I believe this is an opportunity to share the peace of our sanctuary with a wider audience." As the sisters dispersed after the announcement, Teresa found herself walking toward the common room, drawn there by a force she couldn't explain. The room was empty, as it usually was at this hour. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. And there it stood in the corner, the old upright piano. It wasn't much to look at, its dark wood scratched in places, the brass pedals worn from years of use. Teresa approached it slowly, as one might approach a wild animal, unsure of its reaction. She ran a finger along the closed lid, leaving a trail in the thin layer of dust. When was the last time anyone had played it properly? Not since Sister Veronica, who used to plunk out simple hymns for the children. And Sister Veronica had passed away 3 years ago. Teresa glanced toward the door. No one was around. With a trembling hand, she lifted the lid, revealing the keys. Some of the ivory yellowed with age, a few chipped at the edges. She didn't dare to go that far. But she did allow her right hand to hover over the keys, feeling the pull of them like gravity. One note. Surely there could be no harm in playing just one note. Her index finger descended, pressing a middle C. The sound rang out, not as bright as it should be. The piano needed tuning, but clear enough. Teresa closed her eyes, feeling the vibration travel up her arm and into her chest. "Sister Teresa?" She snatched her hand back as if burned, turning to find Mother Catherine standing in the doorway. "Mother, I was just checking if the piano was in working order for tomorrow's visitor." Mother Catherine's expression was unreadable. "Were you now?" Teresa looked down, feeling like a child caught stealing sweets. "I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't." To her surprise, Mother Catherine crossed the room and sat on the piano bench, patting the space beside her. "Join me, sister." Confused, Teresa hesitantly sat next to the Mother Superior. "Did you know," Mother Catherine said, "that before I took my vows, I studied art?" "I painted landscapes mostly. Not professionally like you with your music, but I loved it dearly." "I didn't know," Teresa said. "Do you still paint?" Mother Catherine shook her head. "No, like you, I was told to set it aside. Different times, different thinking." She ran her fingers lightly over the keys, not pressing hard enough to make a sound. "But I've often wondered if that was right. God gives us gifts for a reason, doesn't he?" Teresa felt a lump forming in her throat. "Sister Agatha said music like mine belonged to the world, and I had chosen to separate myself from worldly things." And what do you think after all these years? Was she right? Teresa stared at the keys, at her gnarled hands resting in her lap. I don't know anymore. I chose this path and I have never regretted it. The peace I've found here, the purpose, it's been a good life, but, Other Catherine prompted gently, but sometimes I wonder if I could have served God through my music as well, if setting it aside completely was truly what he wanted. The words once spoken seemed to hang in the air between them. Mother Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Our visitor tomorrow, Mr. Ricci, is a pianist as well as a filmmaker. Perhaps God has sent him to us for a reason. Before Teresa could ask what she meant, the chapel bell rang, calling them to midday prayer. Mother Catherine rose and Teresa followed, giving the piano one last glance before leaving the room. That evening, Sister Lily sought out Teresa in the garden, where the elderly nun was tending to her beloved roses. The garden had become Teresa's sanctuary over the years, a place where she found joy in nurturing living things. Sister Teresa, Lily said excitedly, I've been thinking about what you told me this morning. About being a pianist. Have you now? Teresa smiled at the young woman's enthusiasm. Yes, and I had an idea. What if you played something for us? Not during Mr. Ricci's visit or anything public like that. Just for the sisters? Maybe after evening prayers sometime? Teresa gently pruned a wilting rose. Oh, child, I couldn't possibly. It's been 61 years. My hands wouldn't remember. Even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. Her hands did remember they had been playing phantom melodies all day, but Mother Catherine might allow it. She seems different from what you've told me about the previous Mother Superior. Teresa considered this. She is different. Kinder in many ways, more flexible in her thinking. She looked at her dirt-covered hands. But my arthritis, I couldn't play like I used to. It doesn't have to be perfect, Sister Lily insisted. Just beautiful. Teresa smiled at the young nun's simple wisdom. We'll see, she said, not committing but not refusing either. Now help me finish with these roses before the light fades. As they worked side by side, Teresa found herself humming again, this time a Chopin nocturne, one of the pieces she had played at her final recital. Sister Lily listened, smiling, and after a while began humming along, picking up the melody. That night, lying in bed, Teresa flexed her fingers slowly, feeling the familiar ache in her joints. She closed her eyes and imagined sitting at a grand piano again, the spotlight warm on her face, the expectant hush of the audience. But in her imagination, she wasn't wearing a concert dress but her nun's habit. And she wasn't playing for applause but for something greater. If it's your will, she whispered into the darkness, help me find the courage. Outside her window, a gentle rain began to fall, its rhythm like soft music against the glass. Teresa fell asleep to its lullaby, dreaming of tomorrow and the stranger it would bring, a man who, unknowingly, might be the key to unlocking the silenced music that had lived inside her all these years. Morning arrived, with golden light streaming through the windows of St. Catherine's Convent. Sister Teresa woke earlier than usual, her heart beating a little faster than normal. Today was the day their visitor would arrive. She dressed carefully in her freshly pressed habit, smoothing down the fabric with hands that trembled slightly. In the small mirror above her basin, she noticed how bright her eyes looked today, almost youthful despite the wrinkles that framed them. The convent was abuzz with activity. Several of the younger nuns were cleaning the chapel to a shine, while others prepared refreshments for their guest. Even Sister Agnes, who usually complained about any disruption to their routine, seemed caught up in the excitement. Have you heard? Sister Lily whispered to Teresa as they met in the hallway. Mr. Ricci has played in concert halls all over the world. He even performed for the Pope last year. Teresa felt a flutter in her chest. Is that so? She said, trying to sound casual. Yes, and he's bringing a camera crew to film the chapel. Mother Catherine says we should go about our normal duties and pretend they're not there. But how can we? It's so exciting! Teresa smiled at the young nun's enthusiasm. Just remember why we're here, child. This is still God's house, not a theater. Of course, Sister Lily said, looking properly chastened. Then she added, but wouldn't it be wonderful if you could talk to him? One pianist to another. Before Teresa could respond, the sound of a car coming up the gravel driveway reached them. Sister Lily rushed to the window. They're here. Teresa stayed back, suddenly nervous. For decades, she had lived in this peaceful isolation, her past life as a musician buried deep. Now it felt as if that past was rushing toward her like an approaching train, and she wasn't sure if she should step aside or let it hit her. Mother Catherine greeted their visitors at the main entrance. Teresa watched from the doorway of the dining hall as a tall man with salt and pepper hair shook the Mother Superior's hand. Behind him, 2 people with camera equipment were unloading the car. "Thank you for allowing us to film your beautiful chapel," the man was saying. His voice was deep and pleasant with a slight Italian accent. "I've heard the acoustics are exceptional." "We are honored to be included in your documentary, Mr. Ricci," Mother Catherine replied. "Our chapel has stood for over 5 centuries. If its walls could speak, they would tell many stories. Please call me Anthony." He smiled warmly. "And perhaps some of your sisters have stories to tell as well? I'm particularly interested in the role music has played in your worship traditions." Mother Catherine's eyes found Teresa across the hall. "Indeed, some of us do have stories. Come, let me show you to the chapel first, and then perhaps we can talk more over tea." Teresa slipped away before they could notice her watching. She retreated to the garden, needing the comfort of fresh air and the familiar scent of roses. She sat on a stone bench, watching bees move lazily from flower to flower. Her mind, however, was far from peaceful. Why had Mother Catherine looked at her that way? Did she expect Teresa to speak with this man about her past? The very thought made her palms sweat. She hadn't discussed her music with outsiders in so long. What would she even say? An hour passed as Teresa remained in the garden, half hiding, half meditating. The sound of footsteps on the gravel path made her look up. Mother Catherine was approaching, and beside her walked Anthony Ricci. "Here she is," Mother Catherine said. "Mr. Ricci, this is Sister Teresa, who has been with us for over 60 years. Anthony smiled at her, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Sister Teresa." Teresa nodded politely. "Welcome to St. Catherine's." "Sister Teresa tends our roses," Mother Catherine said. "They've won prizes at the local flower show for the past 15 years. "They're beautiful," Anthony said, admiring the blooms. "You clearly have a gift for nurturing things." "God's creations need little help from me," Teresa replied. "They know what they're meant to be. I just provide the conditions for them to flourish." Anthony looked thoughtful. "That's a lovely way to put it. I feel the same way about music sometimes. The notes are already there, waiting to be played. The musician just gives them life." Teresa felt her heart skip a beat at his words. It was exactly how she had always felt about playing. "Mother Catherine tells me you were once a concert pianist," Anthony said gently. Teresa shot a surprised look at the Mother Superior, who gave her an encouraging nod. "That was a long time ago," Teresa said finally. "Another life." "Music is never really forgotten," Anthony said. "I believe it stays with us even when we're not playing." There was something in his tone that made Teresa look at him more closely. He wasn't just making polite conversation. He genuinely understood. "Would you mind showing me the piano in your common room?" he asked. "Mother Catherine mentioned you have one." "It's quite old," Mother Catherine said, "and probably out of tune. We don't have anyone who plays regularly anymore. I'd still like to see it if that's all right. Perhaps I could even play a little something for your sisters. As a thank you for your hospitality," Mother Catherine smiled. "We would be honored." As they walked back toward the convent building, Teresa found herself walking beside Anthony while Mother Catherine led the way. "Did you always want to be a pianist?" Teresa asked, surprising herself with the question. Anthony nodded. "From the time I was 5 years old. My grandfather had an old piano in his house, and I would spend hours just pressing the keys, fascinated by how each one made a different sound." Teresa smiled, remembering her own childhood fascination. "For me, it was at church. They had a beautiful grand piano, and after services, the pianist would sometimes let me sit beside her and play simple tunes." "When did you know you had a special talent for it?" "My teacher told my parents when I was 8. She said I had perfect pitch and a natural sense of rhythm." Teresa paused, then added softly, "But talent is God's gift. What matters is what we do with it." Anthony looked at her with interest. "And what did you do with yours?" "I played. I studied. I was on my way to a career as a concert pianist." She took a deep breath. "And then I found a different calling." They had reached the common room. Several sisters were already there, having heard that their visitor would be playing for them. The old piano stood in the corner, its dark wood gleaming from a fresh polish. "Someone's been taking care of it." Teresa observed. Sister Lily cleaned it this morning, Mother Catherine said with a small smile. Anthony walked over to the piano and opened the lid. He pressed a few keys, wincing slightly at the out-of-tune notes. It needs some work, but the action is still good. He sat down on the bench and played a scale, his fingers moving effortlessly up and down the keys. "What would you like to hear, sisters?" he asked the small crowd that had gathered. "Bach," Sister Lily called out enthusiastically, then blushed when everyone looked at her. Anthony smiled. "Bach it is." He positioned his hands over the keys and began to play the prelude in C major. Despite the piano's imperfections, the music filled the room with a beauty that brought tears to Teresa's eyes. She watched Anthony's hands, how they moved with such confidence and grace. His eyes were closed, his expression peaceful as if he were praying. When he finished, there was a moment of reverent silence before the sisters broke into applause. "That was lovely," Mother Catherine said. "Thank you." Anthony turned on the bench and his eyes found Teresa's. "Would you play something for us, Sister Teresa?" The room went quiet. Teresa felt every eye turn to her. "Oh, I couldn't," she said quickly. "It's been far too long and my hands—" She held them up, showing the swollen joints. "Just one piece," Anthony encouraged. "Something simple." Mother Catherine stepped forward. "Sister Teresa, for 61 years you have kept your gift hidden out of obedience. But perhaps God has brought Mr. Ricci to us today for a reason. Would you consider playing? Not as a return to your past life, but as an offering of that gift back to God." Teresa looked around at the faces of her sisters, at the expectant look on Sister Lily's face, at the gentle encouragement in Mother Catherine's eyes. And then she looked at Anthony, who had moved from the bench and was holding out his hand to her. "The piano is imperfect," he said, "but so are we all. The beauty comes through anyway." Slowly, Teresa moved toward the piano. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. She sat down on the bench, adjusting her habit around her. The keys before her seemed both familiar and strange, like meeting an old friend after many years apart. "I don't know if I remember anything," she said quietly. "Your hands will remember," Anthony assured her. Teresa closed her eyes and placed her fingers on the keys. She took a deep breath, silently offering a prayer. "Lord, if this is your will, guide my hands." And then she began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major filled the room. Her fingers were stiff and she missed a few notes at first. But as she continued, something remarkable happened. The years fell away and her hands remembered. The arthritis was still there, the pain still present, but somehow it didn't matter anymore. The music flowed from her fingers like water from a spring that had been stopped up for too long. Teresa felt tears on her cheeks but didn't stop playing. She moved from Chopin to Bach's Goldberg variations, the complex notes coming back to her as if she had played them yesterday. When she finally stopped, the room was completely silent. She opened her eyes to find every sister staring at her in amazement. Sister Lily was openly crying. Mother Catherine had a hand pressed to her heart, and Anthony Ricci was standing very still, his phone held up recording. "That," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion, "was one of the most beautiful things I have ever heard." Teresa looked down at her hands, surprised by what they had just done. "I didn't think I could still play like that." "Some gifts never leave us," Mother Catherine said softly. "They just wait for the right moment to be shared again." As the sisters gathered around her, their faces shining with wonder and joy, Teresa felt something inside her shift and settle. The two parts of herself, the concert pianist she had once been and the devoted nun she had become, no longer felt separate. They had finally, after all these years, become one whole person. And somewhere beyond the stone walls of St. Catherine's Convent, beyond the garden with its prize-winning roses, beyond even the hill country that surrounded them, the music she had played was already traveling out into the world, carried by invisible waves of technology she barely understood, ready to touch hearts she would never know. That evening, after Anthony Ricci and his camera crew had left, St. Catherine's Convent hummed with an energy it hadn't known in years. The sisters gathered in the dining hall for their evening meal, but the usual silence was replaced by excited chatter. "Did you see how her fingers moved across the keys?" Sister Lily was saying to anyone who would listen. "It was like she never stopped playing." Sister Teresa sat quietly at the end of the table. her cheeks flushed with all the attention. The pain in her joints had flared up after her playing, but she barely noticed it. Her mind was still filled with music, with the feeling of the keys beneath her fingers, with the joy that had washed over her as she played. "Sisters, sisters," Mother Catherine finally called, gently restoring order. "Let's allow Sister Teresa to eat in peace. She's had quite a day." Teresa gave her a grateful look, though in truth she wasn't very hungry. She felt both exhausted and exhilarated, as if she had run a great distance but was somehow stronger for it. After the meal, Mother Catherine asked Teresa to join her in her office. The Mother Superior's room was simple like all their quarters, but it had a large window overlooking the valley and hills beyond the convent. "Sit, please," Mother Catherine said, indicating a chair. She poured 2 cups of tea from a small pot on her desk. "How are you feeling?" Teresa accepted the cup with a small nod. "Overwhelmed," she admitted. "I never expected to play again, let alone in front of others." "You played beautifully." "My technique was sloppy. The tempo uneven in places," Teresa smiled. "My old teacher would have had much to say about it." Mother Catherine laughed softly. "Perhaps, but none of us heard the flaws. We only heard the heart behind the music." She paused, taking a sip of her tea. "Mr. Ricci was very moved by your performance." "He recorded it," Teresa said, remembering the phone held up. "I saw him. Yes, he asked for my permission afterward. He would like to include it in his documentary with your blessing." Teresa set her cup down with a slight clatter. "Include it? You mean people would see it, hear it?" "That's generally how documentaries work, yes." Mother Catherine's eyes twinkled. "But I'm not a performer anymore. I'm just a nun. You are both, Sister Teresa. You always have been. Your music didn't vanish when you took your vows. It was just waiting." Teresa looked out the window at the darkening sky. 61 years of silence, and now her playing might be heard by strangers. The thought was both terrifying and strangely thrilling. "If you'd rather not have it included, Mr. Ricci will respect that," Mother Catherine added. "But he did say something I thought you should hear." "What's that?" "He believes your story could inspire many people. Not just musicians, but anyone who has set aside a gift or passion because they thought they had to choose between it and their faith." Teresa considered this. Her entire adult life had been shaped by Sister Agatha's decree that her music was a worldly distraction. How many others had received similar messages, believing they had to abandon parts of themselves to serve God? "I'll pray on it," she said finally. "Of course." Mother Catherine reached across the desk and patted her hand. "There's one other thing. Sister Lily has made a rather passionate request." "Oh?" "She's asked if you might consider teaching her to play. It seems our youngest sister has been harboring a desire to learn for some time but was too shy to mention it." Teresa couldn't help but smile at the thought of spirited Sister Lily being shy about anything. "I'm hardly qualified to teach anymore," she said, "and my hands won't allow for demonstrations of proper technique." "I don't think Sister Lily is looking to perform at Carnegie Hall," Mother Catherine said dryly. "I think she simply wants to connect with you through music, and perhaps others might as well." She hesitated, then added, "If you're willing, you could offer a small class for any of the sisters who might be interested." Teresa blinked in surprise. "You're asking me to teach piano? Here in the convent? I'm suggesting that perhaps your gift wasn't meant to be buried but shared, in a way that honors both your vocation and your talent." That night, Teresa lay awake long after the convent had gone silent. Her mind was too full for sleep. She thought of Anthony Ricci and his recording, of Mother Catherine's suggestion about teaching, of the faces of her sisters as they listened to her play. Had she been wrong all these years? Had Sister Agatha been wrong to forbid her music? Or had the timing simply not been right until now? Teresa flexed her aching fingers in the darkness. Tomorrow they would be worse, she knew, swollen from today's exertion. Yet she found herself longing to play again, to feel that rush of joy, that sense of being fully herself. "Guide me, Lord," she whispered into the night. "Show me the path you would have me take." She must have fallen asleep eventually because the next thing she knew, morning light was filtering through her window and the chapel bell was ringing for dawn prayer. She rose stiffly, her hands indeed more painful than usual, but her heart lighter somehow. After breakfast, she sought out Sister Lily in the garden, where the young nun was picking vegetables for the day's meals. "Good morning." "Sister Lily, Teresa called. Lily looked up, her face breaking into a wide smile. Sister Teresa, I was just thinking about you. About your playing yesterday. It was amazing. Thank you, child. Teresa picked up a spare basket and began helping with the harvest. Mother Catherine tells me you're interested in learning to play. Lily's eyes widened. She told you? I mean, yes, I am, very much. But only if you want to teach, of course. I know your hands hurt and I wouldn't want to. I'll teach you, Teresa said simply. Really? Lily's voice rose with excitement. Oh, thank you. When can we start, today? Or is that too soon? I don't want to rush you. Teresa laughed, a sound that surprised even herself. When was the last time she had laughed so freely? Not today. My hands need rest. But perhaps tomorrow afternoon if Mother Catherine approves. She will, Lily said confidently. She believes in your music. We all do. Later that morning, Teresa was in the chapel kneeling in prayer when Sister Agnes found her. There you are, the older nun said, slightly out of breath. You have a phone call. Teresa frowned. A phone call for me? In 61 years at the convent, she could count on one hand the number of personal calls she had received, and those had been from her father before his death decades ago. It's that filmmaker. Mr. Ricci, he says it's important. Curious. Teresa followed Sister Agnes to the small office where the convent's only telephone sat on a desk. She picked up the receiver cautiously. Hello? This is Sister Teresa. Sister Teresa, it's Anthony Ricci. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all. We've finished morning prayers. I wanted to let you know that something unexpected has happened. Teresa felt a flutter of concern. Is everything all right? More than all right. It's just... He paused and she could hear the excitement in his voice. The video I took of you playing yesterday. I shared it with a colleague last night, just to show him the remarkable moment I'd captured for the documentary. He was so moved that he asked if he could share it with someone else. I see, Teresa said, though she wasn't sure she did. It's only been 12 hours, Sister Teresa, but the video it's gone viral. Viral. The word made her think of illnesses. I don't understand. It means it's being shared widely on the internet. Thousands of people have seen it already, tens of thousands actually, and they're sharing it with others. Teresa sat down heavily in the desk chair. All these people, they've heard me play? Yes, and they're amazed. The comments are full of people saying how moved they are by your story, by your playing despite the arthritis, by the look of pure joy on your face as you reconnected with the music. Teresa didn't know what to say. The idea of strangers, thousands of strangers watching her, listening to her, was overwhelming. I know this isn't what we discussed, Anthony continued, sounding a bit anxious now. I never intended for it to spread so quickly. It was just supposed to be for the documentary. If you want me to take it down, I will. Take it down? Remove it from the internet. Though honestly, at this point, others have already copied and shared it, so it wouldn't disappear completely. Teresa was quiet for a long moment, trying to process it all. Her private moment, her reconnection with her gift, was now being witnessed by people she would never meet. Strangers were being touched by her music, by her story. Sister Teresa, are you still there? Yes, she said softly. I'm just thinking. I understand if you're upset. This is a lot to take in. Was she upset? Teresa searched her feelings. She found surprise, certainly. A bit of embarrassment at being the center of attention, but also underneath it all a quiet sense of wonder. I'm not upset, she said finally. If my playing is bringing joy to others, then perhaps that's as it should be. It's doing more than that, Anthony said, his voice warm. It's inspiring people. I've had calls from music programs for seniors, from churches, from community centers. They all want to know more about you, about your story. What have you told them? Nothing yet. I wanted to speak with you first. But Sister Teresa, I think there's an opportunity here. Your journey, the way you've reclaimed your gift after all these years, it's powerful. It speaks to people. Teresa thought of what Mother Catherine had said the night before, about how her story might inspire others who felt they had to choose between their faith and their gifts. What would this mean? She asked cautiously. What would I need to do? That's entirely up to you, Anthony assured her. You could simply allow the video to remain online. Or if you're willing, you could share more of your story. Perhaps play again in a more formal recording. Play again? The idea both thrilled and terrified her. I'm not sure my hands would allow it. We could work around that. Short sessions. Plenty of rest between pieces. Teresa looked out the small office window. In the garden, she could see Sister Lily and some of the other nuns working. Tomorrow, she would begin teaching Lily to play. A gift passed on, a circle completed. I need to speak with Mother Catherine, she said, and I need to pray about this. Of course. Take all the time you need. But may I keep the video up for now? Teresa took a deep breath. Yes. If it's helping people, then yes. After she hung up, Teresa remained seated at the desk, her mind whirling with possibilities she had never imagined. At 83, when she had thought her life's path was set and unchangeable, God had opened a new door. Sister Teresa? It was Mother Catherine standing in the doorway. Sister Agnes told me about the call. Is everything all right? Teresa looked up at her, a smile slowly spreading across her face. Everything is changing, she said, and somehow it feels exactly right. 3 months had passed since the day Sister Teresa's fingers had first returned to the piano keys. 3 months of changes that no one at St. Catherine's Convent could have predicted, least of all Teresa herself. The old upright piano in the common room had been replaced by a beautiful baby grand, donated by a music school that had been touched by Teresa's story. It gleamed in the sunlight that streamed through the tall windows, its polished surface reflecting the faces of the small group gathered around it. Remember, relax your wrists, Teresa was saying to Sister Lily, who sat at the piano bench. Let your hands float above the keys like they're resting on water. Lily adjusted her position, her brow furrowed in concentration. 4 other nuns watched from nearby chairs, waiting for their turn at the lesson. What had begun as a single student had grown into a small music class that met 3 afternoons a week. That's better. Teresa nodded with approval. Now try the piece again from the beginning. Lily began to play a simple Beethoven melody. Her technique was still developing, but there was genuine feeling in her playing that made Teresa smile. The young nun had a natural gift that was beginning to blossom under Teresa's guidance. Outside the convent walls, the world had continued to take notice of the elderly nun, who had returned to her piano after 61 years of silence. Anthony Ricci's video had now been viewed by millions. News outlets had picked up the story, sharing it as an inspiring tale of rediscovery and second chances. Letters and emails poured in from around the globe, many from elderly people who had been inspired to return to abandoned hobbies and passions. Mother Catherine had wisely filtered most of this attention, protecting Teresa and the convent from the full force of the world's curiosity, but she had allowed a few meaningful connections to develop. The door to the common room opened, and Sister Agnes poked her head in. They're here, she announced. Teresa nodded. Thank you, sister. Please show them in. Lily stopped playing and stood up from the bench, smoothing her habit nervously. The other nuns straightened in their chairs. A moment later, Mother Catherine entered, followed by a small group of visitors. 3 elderly women and 2 men, accompanied by a younger woman in a caregiver's uniform. Welcome to St. Catherine's, Teresa greeted them warmly. Please come in and make yourselves comfortable. These visitors were from a nearby nursing home, part of a new outreach program that Teresa had started with Mother Catherine's blessing. Once a week, residents who had once played music but had stopped due to age, illness, or lack of opportunity were brought to the convent for what Teresa called musical reminiscence sessions. Sister Teresa, one of the women said, her voice quavering with emotion. I brought my music this time like you asked. She held up a worn folder with sheet music peeking out. Wonderful, Mrs. Chen, Teresa said. We'd love to hear what you've chosen. As the visitors settled in, Sister Lily helped arrange chairs and offered glasses of water. The atmosphere was relaxed and welcoming, a stark contrast to the strict silence that had characterized the convent for so many decades. Before we begin, Teresa said, let's remember why we're here. Music is a gift that connects us, to each other, to our memories, and to something greater than ourselves. Whether our hands are young or old, strong or weak, we each have something unique to offer. She gestured to the piano. Mrs. Chen, would you like to start today? The elderly woman handed her folder to Sister Lily, who opened it on the piano stand. Mrs. Chen made her way slowly to the bench, her walker thumping softly on the wooden floor. Like Teresa, her hands were gnarled with arthritis, but there was determination in her eyes. I haven't played in 30 years, she said, not since my husband died. Take your time, Teresa encouraged her. We're all friends here. Mrs. Chen positioned her fingers over the keys and began to play a gentle folk song from her childhood. Her tempo was uneven, and she hit several wrong notes, but the melody was clear enough to recognize. When she finished, everyone applauded warmly. "That was beautiful," Teresa said. "You've kept that music in your heart all these years." Mrs. Chen wiped a tear from her cheek. "I didn't think I could still do it." "Music never leaves us completely," Teresa said, echoing what Anthony had told her months ago. "It just waits patiently until we're ready to return to it." One by one, the other visitors took their turns at the piano. Mr. Patel played a few bars of a classical Indian raga, adapted for piano. Mrs. Sullivan managed the first page of a Schubert piece she had performed as a girl. Mr. Johnson, who had once played in a jazz band, surprised everyone with a lively, if simplified, rendition of Take the A Train. When they had all played, Teresa sat at the bench herself. In the months since her return to music, her playing had grown stronger. She practiced daily now for short periods to protect her hands. Some days the pain was too great and she had to rest. But more often than not, she found that the joy of playing outweighed the discomfort. "Today I'd like to play something new," she told the group. "It's a piece I've been working on, inspired by our time together." She began to play a composition of her own creation, something she hadn't done since her conservatory days. The melody was simple but moving, with echoes of sacred music woven through it. It spoke of loss and rediscovery, of patience and renewal. When she finished, the room was quiet for a moment. Then Mrs. Chen spoke up. "That sounded like my life," she said softly. "The waiting, the silence, and then finding joy again." Teresa smiled at her. "That's exactly what I hoped to capture." After the visitors had left, promising to return the following week, Teresa remained at the piano. Her hands ached, but she wasn't ready to stop just yet. She played a few notes aimlessly, lost in thought. "That went well," Mother Catherine said, coming to stand beside the piano. "Your visitors seem to get more confident each week." "They're remembering who they were," Teresa said. "Who they still are beneath the years and the pain." Mother Catherine nodded. "Much like you did." She placed an envelope on the piano. "This came for you today. From Anthony." Teresa opened the letter. Inside was a note and a small USB drive. "The documentary is finished," she read aloud. "He sent us an advance copy before it airs next month. Shall we watch it this evening?" "After prayers?" Teresa nodded, feeling a flutter of nervousness. The documentary, titled Sacred Harmonies, explored the intersection of faith and music across different religions and cultures. Her story was just one of several featured, but Anthony had told her it had become the emotional heart of the film. That evening, the sisters gathered in the common room where a television had been set up, another recent addition to the convent. The USB drive was connected and the documentary began to play. Teresa watched with mixed emotions as her story unfolded on the screen. Anthony had handled it with sensitivity and respect, focusing not on the prohibition that had silenced her music, but on the journey of reconnection. There were interviews with music therapists who explained the cognitive benefits of playing music at any age. There were scenes of Teresa teaching her fellow nuns and working with the nursing home visitors. And, of course, there was that first performance, the moment when she had returned to the piano after 61 years. Seeing it from the outside was strange. The elderly nun with trembling hands, the look of concentration that gave way to pure joy as the music took over. When the documentary ended, there was a moment of silence in the room. Then Sister Lily spoke up. "Sister Teresa, did you ever regret it? Giving up your music for so long?" It was a question Teresa had asked herself many times over the past months. She considered her answer carefully. "I regret that I believed I had to choose between my faith and my gift. I know now that they were always meant to work together." She looked around at the faces of her sisters, her family for more than 6 decades. "But I don't regret the path I chose. Every life has seasons. Perhaps my music needed those years of silence to become what it is now." Later, alone in her room, Teresa sat at the small desk where she now kept a journal, another new habit she had developed. She wrote about the documentary, about her students, about the compositions she was working on. On her bedside table sat a stack of letters from people who had been touched by her story. She had answered as many as she could with Sister Lily's help. Some were from elderly people who had returned to abandoned passions. Others were from young people wrestling with how to integrate their faith with their artistic gifts. Outside, the spring rain fell gently, a soft percussion accompanying the evening. Teresa's hands ached from the day's playing, but it was a pain she had come to accept, even embrace. It was the cost of bringing music back into her life, and it was worth it. Tomorrow would bring more lessons, more visitors, more music. At 83, when many would be slowing down, Sister Teresa was experiencing a new beginning. The melodies that had waited patiently in her heart for 61 years were flowing freely now, touching lives far beyond the convent walls. As she prepared for bed, Teresa whispered her nightly prayer of gratitude, for her faith that had sustained her through decades of silence, for her sisters who supported her now in this new chapter, for Anthony, whose visit had unlocked the door to her music, and for the divine hand that had guided her journey, from the young pianist she had once been, through the devoted nun she had become, to this new person who was somehow both at once her fullest, truest self. In the quiet of her room, she hummed a few bars of her new composition, her fingers moving in the air as if playing invisible keys. The piece wasn't finished yet, but then again neither was she.